Okay, so I'm here with Mr. Vinderlick, a second grade teacher at Hunley Park. I've just observed his math lesson, and he went over math standard, teaching money to a small group of students. But before we begin, I want to start off with some celebrations. We're now at the third 9 weeks, which is right there smack in the second semester. You've done a lot of things in your classroom, and I think it's worthy to take some time, give yourself a pat on the back, and celebrate some of those successes. So tell me about some of those.
I think my kids have become much more independent this year. They're doing a really nice job of kind of expressing their knowledge in new and different ways, and they're not relying on me as much to provide them with specific, prompts, expectations. They kind of have taken the standards and kind of run with them a little bit. So I'm excited about that because I can trust them to be, in the back of the room or at one of the tables or at the computer, and they're working on things that are going to help them, move forward. So.
All right. Some of the things, and just so that what I saw and just celebrating that, and it goes right along with that. Students knew exactly what to do while you were working with a small group. You mentioned one time, make sure you're working on something math related on the iPad when they had that choice. Mm-hmm. And as I went around, I saw every student working on something within, math. A group of them were doing the Brain Pop videos, which were math related. Mm-hmm. Another student, which really was at that higher level, she had educations on, and for a minute I thought she wasn't doing the right thing because mm-hmm. she had like some images, like cartoon type images mm-hmm. on it, but she set it up as a math problem. So I had her explain to me what she was working on, and booyah, it was like she had these little dolls that represented a number, and she was gotcha. Adding them up. So awesome. They knew exactly what to do. They had their choices, and the standard, I asked her about the standard that they were working on, and she knew exactly what it was, whether you were working with her as her group or the small group. She knew exactly what was going on.
Okay.
So I think that, I know that your goal for the year, your GBE, it ties directly to personalized learning and creating a more transparent curriculum. Mm-hmm. And I think, as we look at the rubric, you'll see a lot of those things already in place in your classroom, and it's just about doing that stretch and going on right. as far as implementation and becoming proficient in that area.
Right.
So let's talk about the next steps then.
Okay.
Your GBE included, like I said, developing a more transparent curriculum, which was goal 5. Mm-hmm. And you said some of the things that you wanted to do was to unpack, use capacity matrices, differentiate your instruction, and start academic goal setting. Mm-hmm. So what do you think your next steps, as far as you have some things in place? I noticed that. Mm-hmm. What are your next steps for those 4 categories as far as your do's,
right.
as far as the things that you'll be doing in your classroom?
For unpacking, basically we've got it down where we unpack together for the most part, sometimes in small groups. And then we go over it each day. So we have our specific set plan in place, but I'd like to have it where the students that are working in the back, since they don't always have to be working on the exact same skills, mm-hmm. that they can refer to some of our posters to say, not only I'm working on addition problems in EduCreations, but I'm working on standard, for instance, in BT7 because I'm trying to do 3-digit addition mm-hmm. problems. I want them to be able to do that. So I think they can always, I hope that they can tell me their standard when they're with me, but when they're in that independent time, they can rattle off exactly what standard they're working on independently. So that would be that, I don't know, my do for there is to work with them on finding the standard mm-hmm. and then being able to relate that. For capacity matrices, just started with those, with this unit. I'm pulling a kid from each group each day, and we're going over exactly what it is, what it looks like, and then I'm kind of quizzing them to see what they can do, what they can't do. right now I'm not giving them options on how they can show it to me, but eventually I want it to be, kind of that choice so they can show me their knowledge in a way that's most comfortable for them.
So do you introduce the capacity matrix one-on-one with every individual student?
I introduced it as a class. We put it in our data notebook, but it was just a brief introduction, and then I told them we'd relate to it more, or review it more. So now I'm pulling them, one student at a time to conference. And
I saw that during your conference time, which I thought was really amazing. Just because you did the little self-assessment, the pre-assess, I don't know if it was a pre-assessment or a post-assessment to decide, like, was he ready to move on from that standard, and you knew right away with that flashcard activity, which I thought was really good. So now I'm guessing you started as a class, is what I'm understanding, and now you're moving to, the goal is to do it during one-on-one conferencing.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
For differentiated instruction, I feel like I kind of want to just continue what I'm doing there. I guess the biggest reason that's in there is I want to make sure that I'm really pushing my high flyers to those third grade standards, maybe fourth grade standards, and then my lower group that I'm hitting exactly what they need. So instead of just spending a lot of time on second grade standards, maybe I need to step back and pull in those first grade standards and hit those first before I, say, let's spend 2 weeks on one second grade standard,
Right.
When they may not have that framework, that foundation.
A good way to pull those first grade ones in is look at those proficiency scales, use that as a resource, and it'll give you some activities as well, so that you can kind of merge the second and first grade ones, or even the second and third grade ones, because you could pull the third grade proficiency scales, and it makes it a little bit easier for you to come up with those activities.
Because they're kind of there.
They're there, yeah. What, you could start at a 2. What type of activities would the third grader be doing, or what type of activities would a first grader be doing under this standard? So you don't really have to make it up. It's right there, already done.
Okay.
And what about the last thing you said with the
academic goal setting? Basically, I've got a sheet. We used whole class a while back, and this was sadly before my student teacher took over. So we did a couple goal setting things. So we did behavior goal setting. We did class goal setting if there was something as a class we wanted to work on. And now that I've taken back over, I want to start academic goal setting with individual students, because each kid's different. So I want them to be able to self-assess and think, what's an area that I really need to work on, or what's an area that's a passion of mine that I really want to try to take to the next level. And so starting this week, I'm pulling, my goal is anywhere from 2 to 3 kids a day during our reading centers. And they don't have to academic goal set for reading, but that's just my best time to do it. So I'm going to pull them after I finish my guided reading groups and just sit down and talk to them about, what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, what are some areas that they want to work on. And then we'll kind of come up with sort of like a PDCA. The sheet I'm using isn't quite as specific, but I think I'm going to go back and forth between that sheet, which is just basically what's my goal, what steps am I going to take, and then I'll flip and go to the PDCA later and actually have them track, their mastery with it, with their...
Awesome. That sounds like a really good plan. So I'm hearing that daily you're going to see a small group of students, and you're going to use this template, which they'll come up with their goal and the steps that they have to take to reach that goal.
Right.
And then eventually, when they see you again, that's when they can assess where they were, or...
Yeah, that's my hope, is we can...
Right.
And it can either be a full assessment of if they think they're ready to show mastery, or it could even just be a check, like, have I really been doing the things that I said I was going to do? And
like
if not...
check and adjust.
Exactly, let's make some adjustments. So that's
I think
plan.
that's really good. That's a good plan. And start small, like you said, in a small group instead of taking the whole class and trying to explain it. I think that'll be a more effective way to reach the students, and because it'll be hard the first time around for them to come up with something, but if you have a small group of kids, you can kind of give that gentle nudge, or those individual students, and say, well, I know you're working on spelling, or whatever it is, and maybe we should use spelling as a goal for you, or something like that.
Right.
So really good plan.
Awesome.
So as we move forward, I was thinking about how we could continue to provide evidence that you are, working towards this goal.
Okay.
I've created the Google Drive folders for you guys to upload evidence. I'm not always in here. You guys are always working on things day by day by day.
Right.
And if you have anything, anything that goes along with these steps that you're going to take towards implementation, snap a picture of it. I know when I was in here, I just grabbed a couple of videos while you were doing things to put in your folder. But I really want to see that academic goal setting sheet that you are coming up with,
Absolutely.
the template.
Yeah.
Put that in there because that'll be, that evidence, for this piece on your GBE. And then as the students are, completing them, it doesn't have to be one for every student, but just, one or two in there as you go on, maybe one a month that's been completed.
Okay. And we'll definitely try to celebrate those two as we go. Like, I want to try to make a big deal out of it. So, and I think that'll make it a priority for them is if they've created that goal and they know that there's that reward, whether intrinsic or extrinsic,
right.
as long as they know there's a reason they're reaching for that, and
I think that goes into what's next is how do you know when you've reached your goal? True.
Yeah. Personally, I feel like I know I'll be there when I feel like the kids have more, they've taken even more on, so that they're really taking advantage of those notebooks and they're really, looking at the standards and really thinking, all right, this is something I need to work on. Or, I've already mastered this, but I love what I'm doing here, so what can I do to take me to the next level? I really want them to be the drivers instead of me. And I know it's going to take a while, and it's something you got to build, especially with younger kids. But I guess that'll be my goal is whenever I can feel confident, almost sitting back and letting them, direct their education, their instruction. I think that's when I'll feel fully confident.
And just think, it might not be 100% of your students, and
right.
just like. We look at proficiency as, 85% or 83%. I think one of your students, Bree, was telling me 80 or higher is how I know when I've mastered a standard.
Right.
You think of it like that too. So when 80% or higher of your students are able to do that, that's when you can celebrate and you've done a great job and achieved your goal. So don't think of your 100%.
I will think of that.
I know you will.
I'll celebrate 80. Okay.
But celebrate at that 80, okay?
Yeah.
What do you need from me? Like additional training, support to help you accomplish this goal as far as the transparency and curriculum?
I'm looking at this. I wouldn't mind seeing how other people are given other examples with the capacity matrices. I like the way that I'm approaching it. I'm excited about it, but it never hurts to see other ideas. So that wouldn't be a bad idea. I think whenever it comes to like the differentiated instruction / the standards, when my kids are back here, sometimes I feel like they're really working and they're really getting something out of it, and sometimes I feel like it's not as beneficial as it could be. So, coming up with different ideas on how I can structure my independent time with my kids so that it's as beneficial as possible. Like, I've thought about in ELA maybe adding an extra must-do. Or in math, right now I don't actually have any must-dos for them back here. They made, basically, they've got the computers, they've got the games, they've got all that. Maybe I need to add a must-do where they're working on a specific thing, specific standard that's, some higher level thinking. So just, I guess, some ideas there. So, we can brainstorm that, or we can steal somebody else's idea,
Right. And a couple of things I thought about when you were saying that, more examples of the capacity matrices, which are coming,
Right.
We're building this plane while we're flying it, honestly, but there are things out there, and I'll be going just as a coaching walkthrough, doing some instructional walkthroughs of other buildings that are high flyers. Today I'll be going over to Pinehurst, and next week I'll go over to Pepper Hill, and I will start to look for these examples so that we can start building our.
Right. And I think Pinehurst might be where I go too here for the cohorts. That'll be interesting to see some stuff too.
And then the ideas for structuring your independent time, we can brainstorm like you said. But I just wanted to provide you with the the data from the when we did the training